Tensions are escalating between the U.S. and Iran as an American warship sails toward the Middle East. U.S. aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln has officially left the Mediterranean Sea and passed through Egypt's Suez Canal.
The warship was deployed earlier this week in response to threats from Iran. The Mideast country has dismissed the move, accusing the U.S. of engaging in psychological warfare. Joining us now is CBS News State Department reporter Christina Ruffini with the very latest from Washington. Good to see you, Christina.
Morning, guys. How are you?
So the deployment of this warship to the Middle East comes as the U.S. is also imposing additional sanctions on Iran. So what's behind the Trump administration's decision? They've always saber-rattled, but why are they doing this now, and what exactly are these sanctions targeting?
So the new sanctions go after Iran's metal exports: aluminum, steel, copper, iron. If you remember, the U.S. has already targeted Iranian oil production, and those two natural resources make up the lifeblood of basically what remains of Iran's economy. This, of course, was in response to the news this week that Iran said it's going to stop complying with parts of the nuclear agreement. This is a sector of the economy the U.S. hasn't really targeted before, but it's keeping with what it calls its maximum pressure campaign to get Iran to change its behavior and, quote, act like a more normal country. But normal countries are able to export their natural resources onto the global market, and this will certainly make it harder for Iran to do so. So,
Christine, have we seen anything happen so far? I know that Iran said that it was ready to start to process some of the nuclear material that it has, but have they actually done anything?
So they're not making a nuclear weapon. I think some people hear this and think, oh my gosh, they're making a bomb. That's not really what they're going to do. What they are doing for the moment is holding on to more heavy water and enriched uranium. These are elements that you need to make a nuclear weapon. What the JCPOA did, and that's the Iran nuclear agreement, was it limited the amount of time that it would take for Iran to go from zero to having a bomb. That's called a breakout time. They wanted to make sure that Iran was at least a year away from having that capacity if it changed its mind and all of a sudden wanted to make a weapon. Now, Iran is saying it might be taking steps to shorten that breakout time. The U.S. has said that would be a very serious concern, but the U.S. is no longer in the nuclear deal, and it's the result of U.S. sanctions that have caused Iran to take these steps because, from their view, they say that the U.S. limited basically all. It's a carrot and stick deal, right? And the U.S. took away all the carrots, and Iran says it's sick of getting the short end of the stick, basically.
So, as you know, Secretary Pompeo was just in the U.K. He's been traveling abroad. What's been the reaction from the U.S. and her allies, especially the ones that are still part of the deal?
So far, it's been quiet frustration. Diplomatic sources I've talked to have been very reluctant to say anything on the record because everyone is kind of waiting to see what exactly Iran is going to do. The Iranians gave a 60-day deadline, basically, for signatories to come up with something, a way to make it worth it for them to stay in the deal before it says it's going to start non-compliance. But the U.S. Special Representative for Iran said yesterday, cheating just a little bit is still cheating. It's going to be very hard to justify staying in that agreement, even for European nations that would want to do so, if Iran is saying openly it's no longer going to hold up its end. Now, countries like Germany, France, and the UK had already been trying to do financial workarounds to protect companies who wanted to do some humanitarian and financial dealings with Iran, basically with things with food and medicine. But European companies, for the most part, are not willing to play. They don't want to get burned, and they don't want to risk the huge amount of business they do with the U.S. for the relatively small amount they do with Iran. And so the deal is in limbo, and everybody's waiting to see what happens.
Before we let you go, I have to ask you about North Korea. It's been reported that it launched another projectile, whatever that actually is. So I want to ask you just how the State Department is reacting to this, but also bring us up to speed in terms of where things are. Since the summit broke off and there was no sort of agreement hammered out, what's happened since?
Well, so one of the big things we heard after the summit was, the summit fell apart or appeared to have fallen apart in Hanoi. But the State Department has said over and over again, look, we've made progress. We're in a better part than we were. As you've seen, there have been no missile tests. Well, that's not the case anymore. This is at least the second round of missile tests out of North Korea. Tensions have been escalating. You've seen these paper statements flying back and forth where the North Koreans have gone after Ambassador Bolton, have gone after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, saying they're bad negotiators. They shouldn't have to deal with them. We don't know. So Secretary Pompeo was supposed to go to Greenland on this trip that he's in Europe. He's canceled that stop and is heading back because the press secretary says he has urgent business he needs to attend to in Washington. It's unclear if that is Iran or if that is North Korea, but he does have a meeting with a high-ranking Japanese official at the State Department later today.
All right.
Christina, has Pompeo lost all his credibility with North Korea? I mean, are they even sort of interacting with him anymore?
He keeps